Well, thank you for coming today to listen to the vAuto podcast. My name is Mike Boyd, founder of vAuto's iRecon, and I'm very happy to have Jade Terreberry here today, Senior Director of Strategic Planning for Cox Automotive Consumer Solutions, Autotrader, and Kelley Blue Book. How are you doing today, Jade?
Mike, I'm fantastic. So glad to be here with you all today.
Yeah, I've actually been looking forward to this. So, as some of our listeners may or may not have known, we've spoken a couple different times on a few podcasts now. And I know that we've kind of scratched the surface and dabbled around what's going on in the market around service, fixed ops, obviously a big hot topic right now and a great opportunity. But you have a lot to do with the KBB service and repair. So before we get into the KBB service and repair, I was wondering, can you kind of give me an idea of some things you're hearing out in the market?
Yes, Mike. I too have been looking forward to it. And as we have bantered back and forth after a couple of our other live engagements and podcasts together, it does always feel like we just scratched the surface. And I think, it's really important and exciting that we have time today to start to really dive into the weeds with our clients that are working through challenges and issues, and really trying to redefine what their businesses and priorities look like for current state and then for the next couple of years. And so, when it comes to the market in general, it's no surprise to all of us that there's still a tremendous amount of volatility. We see inventory levels starting to stabilize in some markets, both on the used car side as well as the new car side. We know one of the big changes that's occurring across the board in our, not only our industry, but other industries for that matter, are consumer expectations have been permanently changed by the pandemic. And the way we all collect data, action on that data, use the data to decision make within our businesses, but more importantly, to provide customized experiences that the consumers now expect in every vertical, whether automotive or outside of automotive. And it's really changing and impacting everything. And, I think one of the places where you and I've talked a lot on air and off is there's been this tremendous amount of focus for so many years for our clients on the variable ops side of the business. And even though parts and service and accessory sales and efficiencies in their fixed ops departments have always been key and critical, but they were more on autopilot, whereas we're really starting now to think about the ownership cycle as just as important, or in some cases for the stability of our businesses, more important than the purchase journey itself, as that purchase life cycle is changing and as e-com is entering the marketplace. So, the big pieces that I'm seeing are data's more important than it ever was before. Consumers' expectations are different. And we have to really decide as business owners and dealers how we're going to react and proactively engage to meet consumer demand and to use the data we have at our fingertips to create that multi-pronged revenue approach to our businesses.
So a couple of things you brought up there, and I agree because I'm hearing the same things. When you're talking about how the market has changed for what the consumers are demanding, can you give us a little bit deeper understanding, like what are those new or unmet needs that have surfaced? Because you're right, it has changed. Last couple of years, you could sit at home. Obviously, a lot of people didn't want to travel as much, so they got used to doing everything digitally. But how's that translate over into engaging with the dealerships?
Yes, such a good question. And one of the interesting anomalies that I think we're seeing across the board with how consumers are actually interacting with digital automotive tools and experiences is a lot of what we're seeing in the consumer research, like the things that they tell us are really important, of utmost importance for how they're going to transact, either to purchase a vehicle or how they're going to interact to service a vehicle, maintain a vehicle, act upon a recall. We see that sometimes what they're saying is actually different than what we see in the data that they're doing. And I think that that is a really important call out because, you and I've spent a lot of time talking about the lifetime value of a customer. And we know all of our clients, they want three things first and foremost: sell more cars, make more money, and create more loyal lifetime customers. And that loyal lifetime customer piece falls very heavily on the service and maintenance retention side. But what we see in that consumer data is they're telling us on paper and in surveys that trust matters more than anything else. They would love to service at the place in which they purchase their vehicle. They have a relationship with a place where they've gone for many years. But what we're seeing is that as the market has started to open back up and people are getting more into routines of normalcy in their business or work life, in their kids back in school, um, what we find is that they still are putting comfort and convenience, things that we've always known in this business, make people take action and make decisions and either be loyal or disloyal to a service department or a sales department in the automotive space, that you have to be available to meet their timelines right now. And so some of those things, even on automotive retailing side, where they're telling us trust matters, brand reputation matters, but even more important when it comes to the fixed op side, it's right here, right now. Can you give me the experience that I want? Which means I want to research, compare, take action from sitting on my couch or sadly sitting in traffic holding a mobile device while I'm riding in an Uber. Like, they want to be able to do all those things, and they are taking that digital connection, the ability to move through the experience digitally and to do it on their schedule right now, as things are starting to pile back on them in their work life more than they have in the last few years. And so that digital presence is just imperatively important, because at any time in this business, regardless of whether it's fixed ops, variable ops, nothing is static, especially with all of the volatility we have right now. So at any moment, you are either gaining market share or losing it. You're either giving it to your competitor or you're taking it from them. And we all have to be thinking in that mindset as we think about this digital experience and what consumers want from us and how we connect with them.
So you brought up a few things there. So one was, of course, trust. They have to trust you, right? To do business with someone, you need to trust them. Concentrating on comfort and convenience, and then being available to meet their timelines and expectations. And then you leverage that obviously as the digital experience. So make sure they have access to get the jobs they need done digitally without having to come in or to physically engage, correct?
You got it.
So now let's move into the KBB service and repair. So I have a good baseline understanding, but not super deep. And that's one of the things I wanted to go over, because these are the same things that I'm hearing from the dealerships I engage with,
Mhm.
is that the consumer of old is gone. Like, like all things, they have to change. And especially in the last couple of years, and I'm seeing a big push to modernize the fixed ops departments on how they're marketing and how they're merchandising their goods on their own websites. But how does a dealer, or why should a dealer leverage KBB service and repair? And what would that do?
Yeah. So, Mike, when consumers first started shopping online for automotive listings to buy a car, think how long ago this has been. I mean, you're talking, 20 plus years ago on the Autotrader side. When consumers started interacting with digital retailing tools on the purchase side, we're talking 8, 9, 10 years ago, really aggressively in the last 5, 6 years, how consumers are starting to adopt e-commerce on the automotive side, this full virtual digital purchase. One thing we learned through all of those adoption cycles and adoption curves from consumers was that it takes a really long time for consumer behavior to change. And so, interestingly to us, when we rolled out what was originally the KBB service and repair product a few years ago, it was a very light, I won't call it a test, but we knew it was going to be important for us to start breaking down some of the barriers that exist, first for our franchise dealers, because,
Just that old thinking, right?
it is. It is. Consumers think servicing at a dealership is more expensive than servicing with an independent, for a number of reasons that we all know. And I'm sure you'll ask some questions, and we'll get into that later in today's segment. But ultimately, we put this button out there, and just let me give you an example. Normally, when we put a new feature on one of our consumer platforms or experiences, it takes us big dollars and long periods of time to get consumers to interact with it. We have to educate, we have to drive them to it. We have to be really deliberate about where we place the calls to action. And what we found over the first 12 or so months that the service and repair experience was live in the marketplace, of course, now that is our full suite of KBB Service Advisor products, which is truly a consumer ownership experience. But when we started and we put these buttons out there, we were absolutely blown away pre-COVID. And then, of course, exponentially amazed by the amount of organic growth and activity, hundreds of percent increase in the consumers that were coming through that platform, revisiting that platform on a monthly basis. We very organically went from, a couple thousand users a month interacting through that KBB portal that started with just a really simple button on the main header tab at the top of the KBB homepage experience, to millions of consumers on a monthly basis coming there and coming again and again, and using it to do things we had seen them do for years on the purchase side, but they had just never had anywhere to do that on the fixed op side at any kind of scale. And, so we started with offering just this kind of full set of all of the dealerships where you could potentially get your vehicle serviced. And of course, one of the most valuable pieces of the Autotrader and Kelley Blue Book code bases are the amount of consumer data that we have, literally billions of data points. We know at any given time, for 90 to 95% of households in America, we know where they're servicing, how they're servicing, what vehicles they have in their garage, how they shop, when they're going to purchase
That
again.
consumer confidence in the brand. So they're
That's
coming
right,
there,
what the
they're
trade
engaging.
cycle looks like. But all of those consumer data points that we have power these really relevant personalized search experiences, both for listings and now for service. And so the engine that serves the dealer cards, or the ability to schedule a service through KBB Service Advisor for a consumer, it gives them the dealership that is closest to them, the dealership that can service or offers the type of repair they're looking for. But not only does it give them the ability to directly connect with our participating service advisor dealers, but it also gives them that KBB transparency in the amount of the price that they're going to pay. You mentioned a few minutes ago, even though I think, it's one of the most incredible things we've ever released to the consumer, because it gives the consumer the ability to digitally do all of these ownership things on their fleet of vehicles that they own, to really understand maintenance costs versus trade cost, what a repair should cost, how quickly can they get it done, can they get it picked up at their doorstep, can they look at preferred dealers that they or service locations that have specials on the type of service that they need to have completed timely. But it also gives the ability for this group of clients that are participating the ability to track. And we mentioned that in the beginning, like time is money, dollars are money, and we've said it over and over. But fixed operations, even though all of our clients know it's more than half of their profitability, and it's probably one of the most important revenue streams they have in their business today. But it's been an area where they've used very traditional media sources to promote their fixed operations department in the past. So that would be, billboards or Valpak coupons or mailers, or the digital things they have done in the past have been really costly and really casting a wide net. Why in the world would you pay for paid search on a type of specific service that you're paying, $3, $5, $7+ per click to drive it there, when you now have this ability to tap into the power of an ownership experience where consumers who are ready, willing, and able and looking to schedule service and are considering connecting with whoever can meet their needs as soon as possible at the right price. It's changed the entire shopping experience, and it's really opened up this tremendous market share play that exists, that is just so important that we keep top of mind right now. Market
So
share
it
is
sounds like
everything.
the biggest piece of this for the consumer, because that's where it all starts, right?
Hmm.
You have to get that consumer confidence in the information. And I still, of course, have lots of people I've either engaged with, related to, or just know me and are asking me, hey, I need to get this done on my car. What's
Hmm.
this usually run?
Hmm.
And you mentioned earlier that it is common for someone to believe that it is more expensive to go to the franchise dealer to have service repairs done.
Hmm.
So when you're talking about that consumer confidence and of course, leveraging that digital experience and letting them do the shopping from their phone or home. So are the dealers who are participating, I assume they're putting prices out there or that's a best practice?
Yeah, so best practice, they don't have to, but most of them are, and are incredibly pleased with the results they're seeing, because what you have is the KBB fair repair range. So if you think about, everybody knows KBB price range, KBB price advisor, the little fan that shows red and green for a vehicle purchase. We're doing the same thing with that same data science and logic behind it, where we're collecting regionally, by DMA, by zip code, millions and millions of ROs on a monthly basis, and updating those fair repair ranges regularly so that it gives the consumer confidence that they know what they're going to pay for dealers that are publishing their price. And also, as I said earlier, it gives a really unique opportunity for a client to post real-time specials on their dealer card for areas where, if they're doing a special on oil changes, or a recon add-on, a car wash, or tires, or a rotation, they actually have the ability now. And again, they're putting these messages in front of, in market, ready to take action, consumers who are searching to schedule an appointment now and just want that extra added price validation. And there's no stronger brand to leverage than the KBB brand to do that.
Right. And it's that security of knowing that it's out there because we're all told, you believe what you see, not what you hear. So this sounds very reminiscent going back a couple years at least when Provision first came out, and you had a lot of hesitation from dealers to post their prices and to really look at their pricing strategy as a way to attract customers. And then what we saw was that the dealers who really started looking past their own backyard and looking at the bigger play, the bigger
Mhm.
opportunity, and then being very free with the information, it gave them a lot of insight into really how to harness that opportunity, how to appeal to, like I said, a lot further outside their own backyard. So I'm assuming it's the same type of play with service and repair rather than them having to call in or hoping they come in and visit you, which we know they do. But there's a lot of people who don't because they just do not have the information. They believe it's more expensive, they just don't know how to engage with the dealer. Are you seeing
Yes,
that?
we are. Transparency is the key word that all consumers, regardless of the experience, the ones that are um, in store versus online, going through your service drive, or coming in to have their vehicle valued for an outright purchase, even if they aren't trading. Transparency and database decision making is just as important to a consumer, or more important than anything else that is part of their decision making criteria today for who they do business with. And I remember the days when dealers were laughing at me for, when we talked about one price unit, one price vehicle sales, putting your best price, your best foot forward out there, because attracting consumers from further away that were researching and shopping digitally, it took a while for dealers to really grasp that. And what we're seeing, and funny enough, it's even a different conversation today versus a year and a half or 2 years ago, with dealers that at first were really questioning, offering this type of price transparency on the fixed op side, because they were saying, occasionally before our data set got as large as it is right now, because at first, we weren't looking regionally in every single market. There wasn't a big enough volume or statistically significant RO data for every type of service out there to collect it on a regional basis or by brand. And so dealers were saying, you know, there's a price out there that's $25 less than what I'm charging for X. But what we have found is as the data sets have grown, our clients are actually far more profitable because not only are they getting that, but there's a level of trust that is increasing the the dollars for every RO that's coming through their service department, because we know a lot of people, I mean, there is still a tremendous amount of pent up demand on maintenance and recall, tons of recalls that are still sitting out there. That for every dealership that gets a swing at bat at one of those recalls, we know that those RO dollars associated with all of the other things that they are now able to sell and upsell and connect with a consumer that is a swing at bat to purchase a vehicle, acquire a vehicle, sell a vehicle, and create that loyal lifetime customer that we know is the
You
bread and
just,
butter and
yeah, you just
stability of our
mentioned what I was
business.
going to go to
Yeah.
when you're talking about. So there's a lot of pent up demand,
Hmm.
which we know right now that there is not a surplus of new cars and not necessarily a surplus of used cars. So there's quite a few people who are outside their norm and trade-in cycle or
Hmm.
lease return cycle. So that means that those services and repairs that they weren't accustomed to doing because they were just going in and trading out and getting the newer model, they're now out there shopping. So this is a great way to not only engage with that consumer the way they want to be engaged with, but I mean, we could go into a whole nother segment talking about, how do you stock your lot when it's either the auction or very few trade-ins? Your best opportunity to acquire a decent vehicle for resale is through your service lane. So it's one hand feeds the other.
Yeah, you bet it is. And that one hand feeds the other is a big piece of this overall equation. And we may be saving this for a later segment. So I'll give really high level comments and then you can tell me if we want to dive in today or let's schedule the next one to talk through it. But, as a dealer or an operator today, determining how you service that external customer versus the internal customer, being your used car department, it's such a key piece of figuring out how you stabilize that fixed ops revenue stream, how you determine kind of where it falls in the priorities and the allocation of your profit goals, both gross margin and net, for the overall future of your business and that market share footprint that you're trying to grow for the long term. Who are you today? Who do you want to be? But I think that's a key area, Mike, that I know we both could talk forever is you have got to figure out how to weigh servicing the internal customer versus meeting the needs of the external customer, because that external customer is critical for you having those swings at bat to acquire a vehicle. And even if you don't have a new car to sell them a certified pre-owned, but you've got to take vehicles in on trade to have an opportunity to sell that car. And then you've got to get them to market quickly, which is how are you managing your used car department and where it fits within your ability to service a consumer right now, like we talked about in the beginning, is key to gaining that market share, being available when they are ready to have that service completed right at their fingertips.
Right. And looking at that available profit margin of 50+% comes from a fixed ops department is definitely something that we need to pay more attention to in this current market. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I definitely think we'll have a follow-up meeting because I think there's a lot more here we can talk about. But I want to get a better idea on that KBB service and repair because it was just very interesting the more I learn about it. So if one of our listeners would like to learn more about it, who would they reach out to and what would you recommend they do?
Yes, Mike. So they can reach out to their Autotrader Kelly Blue Book rep. I'll also share with you that you can post in the comments here the KBB B2B site that they can visit for more information. But their Autotrader and Kelly rep that they talk to about their listings package and all of the ways that they put their brand in front of consumers digitally, that's the same rep that's going to help them and connect them with the KBB team to ensure that they are making those same consumer connections with a real-time in-market, ready to service right now audience, and offering that level of transparency and the ability to surface those real-time specials to consumers in their marketplace that probably wouldn't have known about them otherwise. Give them that market share advantage.
Yeah, and really leverage the KBB brand awareness. I mean,
Mhm.
customers trust it, they know it. We know dealers all across the country are having great success with our Kelly Blue Book instant cash offer. So it's just one more way to appeal to the consumer in the way they want to be appealed to and the way they want to be engaged with. Well, thank you again, Jade. I appreciate you taking the time out to speak with me. And please, everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. And please look forward to our next podcast. This is Mike Boyd with vAuto's iRecon. Thank you very much.